Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kevin Lee Show. Thank you for coming on. This is an 8-part series that I will be releasing every week on Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The preface for this interview is based around a primary question that I learned from Tony Robbins attending his business mastery event in Amsterdam. And it is based around, if your core business was completely disrupted tomorrow, what would you do? How would you pivot or innovate? And during this time of the recording, we're going through the COVID pandemic. And so I thought it was very fitting interviewing people from around the world in different industries to see how they've pivoted and innovated in their struggling industries. And so the idea is to inspire and encourage people who need it. And so I hope everyone can learn a few lessons from these experts. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Hello, today we have Boon Chu. He's the founder of Tappollo Media, which is an acclaimed mobile app and enterprise blockchain development company focusing on development elegant and highly engaging mobile applications for market leaders. Aside from building apps for clients, they also actively develop their own app ranges, apps that we feel will make a difference in people's lives. Their app Word Tracer has been featured in Apple's commercial Everything Changes with iPad. Their clients include, and not limited to, iHeartMedia, Walmart, Discovery Channel, WeWork, Makespace, Timehop, Sevenrooms, Grailed, just to name a few. Everyone, please help me welcome Boon Chu. Hey Boon, how are you, buddy? Thank you for jumping on today's show.
Yeah, hi Kevin.
It's such an honor and pleasure to have you on. I appreciate it, I admire your work. From what I've seen, you do some amazing work with some pretty incredible companies out there, so it's such a pleasure to have you on. Would you be able to give the audience an idea of your business and what you and who and what you work on?
Sure. So our business, sort of in the simplest term, it's like a mobile app technology company. What we do is two things. So we help market leaders and startups build, execute their mobile initiatives.
Yep.
We also very actively build our own apps and also open source projects as well.
Yeah. Great. Nice and simple. Coming into, during the time of this recording is during the COVID pandemic. What was it like? What was your business model like before and then moving towards this current environment?
Yeah, so actually before the business model, like before last year, we usually target like really big companies. And starting from last year, we started working with a lot of startups in a different mode, because the way we usually work with those bigger companies, the rate is in such a way where we just price a lot of startups out of the market. Yeah. So what happened is so we thought about that, and we thought that, with our expertise, we can actually lend a lot of help to startups. So we basically just let the startup tell us what is going to work for them.
Yeah.
And we tell them our cost, and basically we allow them to pay us the difference between what we usually charge our bigger clients.
Yeah.
With equity. So that gives the startups a lot of flexibility in terms of how they want to structure the pay.
Yeah.
And also allow them to basically hire someone that has a quality team that has a lot of insights on building like highly scalable, but also like the thing is highly scalable, but also like really high profile projects.
Yeah.
To work on the apps. Yeah.
So from the sounds of it, you've diversified more into the startups and less into the larger companies. And how do you feel that has affected ever since it happened? So have you seen more of the larger ones being impacted or more of the smaller ones being impacted?
Yeah, so good question. So before we went with this investing model, for a long time, we didn't really want to take on any project that would want to pay us equity. But we realized that given that we have a small team, we can only work with, say, 4 to 5 big companies, every year. And so we really wanted to help. And so when we switched over to this model, we started working on a lot of very innovative projects. Yeah. Right. That's when we start noticing that, wow, there's a lot of innovations going on in the startup space because everyone is testing with different ideas. Yeah. And that's the kind of energy you don't really see with the larger companies, because larger companies tend to want to stick with what they know is best and not want to take the risk of trying something new. The downside is initially when we first did the investing model for the first year, we were bleeding quite a bit from a revenue or profit standpoint, because half of our projects at the time, we basically allocated our bandwidth towards startup projects. And given the fact that, the part of the revenue is covered by equity,
Yes.
that we literally, those we won't see until they, become like they have a value later on.
Yeah, for sure.
But what ends up being really positive for us is that because we diversify our sort of our portfolio, so to speak, because we get to work with a lot of different startups, that when COVID-19 hit, for example, we lost one big client in the travel space, and they had to, lay off a lot of people, obviously terminate our project as well. If we didn't really diversify with the way we did, we would have lost a third of our revenue right there, right? But because we have diversified, we actually ended up hiring more people during this time, because we're still seeing a lot of people, especially from the startup space, wanting to spend more money. Why? Because smaller startups tend to be more nimble, and they don't have as big of a sort of burn rate, right? So they're still able to spend and able to take this chance to pivot and innovate. So we ended up hiring more team members and onboarded more team projects than last year because of COVID-19. And also because of the larger sort of diversification, like for example, we are working with an owner that runs a sort of cleaning business, like office cleaning business. So his business is obviously booming.
Yes.
The fact that his business is booming, means that he's able to spend more money on the project that he has with us.
Yes.
Another project a company we onboarded is in the IoT elderly sort of healthcare space. And obviously they are not being impacted as much, because anything that's in the healthcare business tend to be at least okay. So.
Well, I love the concept and the idea that you're investing firsthand into these startup companies, even though there's no immediate revenue, because of A, your passion, B, the energy and the creativity and innovation that comes out of these smaller companies. Could you share with us a bit about your thinking behind giving first?
If you look at the portfolio, even when we were working on the larger companies, we tend to work with very high quality companies. Like iHeartMedia is one of the biggest sort of radio streaming platform in the US, and Discovery Channel, and WeWork and companies like that. When we went with the vesting model, we took the same mindset, right? So even though we are now working with smaller players, we still want to make sure that all the companies that we work with, the startups that we work with, have really sound ideas, really good ideas. So that has allowed us to be able to basically participate in a lot of really innovative projects, and also contribute what we know from working with the larger company, and taking the practices and sort of, bringing it to the startups. What is the other question that you were asking? I want to make sure I didn't miss that.
And it was more about your philosophy about giving.
Philosophy. So my philosophy is that in order to get something, you have to give more of it. So if you want money, you give money, right? You want value, you give value. So for me, that's really the best way to get something. Like we're not like, we don't have sales tactics or, marketing know-how and things like that. All we know is that we got to do something well, and we have to deliver value to the market, because it's very simple. If we know that, for example, a company comes to us and say they have a good idea if they have an idea, and why do we have to vet their ideas before we work on their project, rather than say, if you have money, we'll just take it on? Well, the thinking is that if we know that you have a good idea, that's sort of the first foundation, and then we're able to help you execute it properly. Then if you succeed, you're going to come back to us for more stuff. So to me, that's a good long-term strategy. Rather than just to take on whatever comes our way because they pay the bill. It's not a good long-term strategy, because you can work on it for 3 months and then it doesn't go anywhere, and then they're not going to come back to you, and then you have to keep on looking for new things. So that strategy allows us to grow in a very sort of organic manner, because we are able to work with companies for a long period of time. They keep coming back to us. And it feels really good as well, because you are adding value to them. There's a lot of stuff they end up going with. We see a lot of horror stories with startup going with companies that just focus on the profit, like the bottom line, and not really on the value delivery. So they end up sort of run into a lot of issues, and we saw that happening a lot in the industry, and we want to avoid that.
Mm.
And because with us, we don't have a huge marketing engine. We have to rely on word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I think that the tactic that we use, makes a lot of sense for us, because just through word of mouth is enough to keep us busy. 100% of the time.
Wow, I love that, because I think that's one of the strongest forms of marketing, right? By the value you give, the results, and people sharing it because they know the quality of work that you deliver. I was looking into some of your work, and I see that and as you mentioned before, it seems that you're very passionate about giving and adding value. And I saw, like you saw an opportunity, like not just an opportunity, but you saw a space in, for example, what the environments that COVID-19 is giving now, where it's hitting a lot of restaurants, and you looked into building these food platforms that people can order, and it's like a win-win situation for everyone.
Yes.
And I was just curious to see what your motivation behind going strong and adding value is, because it's easy for a lot of people during this time to just contract and focus only on what keeps them safe. But you're out there and you're motivated to try to add value and give more value and help as many as you can.
Yeah. I think it's about not following the crowd. Because if you know that when you follow the crowd, the outcome is that you're gonna get the result that the crowd gets.
Yeah.
Right. So and it's also important to not sort of follow the first, like the sort of the reaction, right? The immediate reaction to something is always like contract.
Yeah.
So but that takes away energy as well, right? When you're afraid, when you're fearful, when you're worried, that takes away energy that you could spend somewhere else. I mean, your energy cannot be spent on two sort of opposite sides, right? You cannot worry and be happy at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, the moment we notice that we are not really contributing our energy in the right sort of way, we take ourselves out and say, because to look for solutions, you basically have to have a sort of a positive mindset, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you can look for solutions. And when you have that mindset, all the possibilities just come up, because you just keep coming up with different ideas on how you can leverage. And in Chinese, there's a word called in Chinese, crisis is made of two characters, danger and opportunity. So yes, there's danger in the crisis, but because of the danger, it also creates an opportunity. And so then, do you want to focus on the danger, which is what most people do? You see the danger, you want to contract, and you want to like sort of protect yourself, or do you want to sort of seize the opportunity and do something, during a crisis? So that, I think, comes from years of practice as well, right? There's a practice of having a contrarian type of mindset. So I think at the end of the day, when running a business or doing anything in general, mindset is number one.
Yeah.
Because if you have the right mindset of in terms of delivering value, having integrity, and all of that stuff, that's the foundation of running that business. If you have that foundation, your team members will stay with you for the longest time. Your clients will stay with you for the longest time. The moment you start doing things that is not really like correct, you have high turnover rate within your team, and you also probably have high turnover rate with your clients as well.
Yeah. I agree definitely with the mindset, and it doesn't come overnight. Especially in the entrepreneurship field, we take a lot of hits, and each time we build that resilience, we build that grit, and we build that strength. And talking about opportunity and looking into the future, what are some of the things that you are focusing on or continuing to focus on in the near future?
Yeah. For me, the biggest thing is, how do we allow people to fail fast? So that's especially true for the startup space. They need to be able to come in here, fail fast without spending a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And what happened a lot with a lot of startups is they fail, but they fail for the wrong reason. They fail not because they from testing the idea. They fail because the execution wasn't done right. So we want to make sure that the execution is done correctly. Right. So the money that they spend is also the right amount. So what we've been focusing on is to basically look at the whole ecosystem and say, what is it that we can do to make sure that we create a piece of technology that allows them to develop a new app really quickly. Right. So that's why we have an open source project that we created, that allows us to basically start any project and get it done much quicker than any other companies out there.
Yeah.
Well, in general, and by doing that, we first of all, we allowed our customers to pay less money, right, to test the ideas, and we also allow ourselves to work with more projects, right? One can say that, yeah, if you can build something faster, doesn't that make you make less money?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true from one client, that's true. But when you are spending less time with one person and you allow them to fail fast, that means that they can iterate faster and you can end up working with them for a longer period of time. Second thing is that because you're able to get things done faster, you can work with more clients, which increases the chance of you working on, on successful ideas.
Yeah. I completely resonate with that. As we both come from the same school of the rapid prototyping course from Tom Chi, it's like a lot about reiterating fast and failing fast, because the quicker you fail, the quicker you get to the market, the quicker you can understand what needs to be done, so that because at the end of the day, it's about the value we give to people, right? And like, just because we always have an idea here, it doesn't mean that it's going to result into something that's going to be effective out there. And so I love that you're building this platform, because a lot of people want to get into your space, but it's the price point access and the ability to have somebody who's going to guide them through. Because I have experience with myself with previous friends' ventures and stuff, where they're getting into the app game and they're just investing way too much before their first iteration, and they just lose all their investment capital, and before they can even get really started. And it's just really painful to see all these stories come up. And so I love that you're working on something like that. I can see that it will really add value to the people entering that space, for sure. And at the end of the day, it's for people to develop a service to add value to everyone else that accesses that platform.
Yeah, another way I think about it too is that when you're starting out, you want to basically have someone else take good care of you, right? So I see myself as almost like a CTO in a way.
Yep.
So I'm going to watch your back. I'm going to make sure that you don't spend too much money. I'm going to make sure you take the right approach, because right approach meaning that, how do you test your idea in the least amount of money, with the least amount of money, and get the maximum amount of learning, right, from it. And throughout the whole process is about me watching your back as well. It's not, the thing is with a lot of models with the agency is that they are working on, and that's why we love the investing model, because when you're working on a time-based model, what they call it time and material, the more time you work on a project, the more money you make.
Yeah.
So where is that incentive to really get things done fast?
Exactly.
Right. So psychologically, it makes no sense for the person who is working on it when they're charging you by the hour.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, with basically working with on your project on a sort of a cash equity basis, that means we want to get it out fast. Because if we take our time, we are hurting ourselves. Exactly. And if we also don't give you the proper advice to execute properly, the equity is not going to have any value, right? So we have to increase the chance of the equity basically, turn into something, right? So all of that makes me feel that the investing model, especially with the startup, building, that's the right way to do it. If the company that you're hiring to do your thing, they don't believe in your project enough to want to do it with this model, you probably want to think of a different company to do it, because they probably just want your cash, right? When you're only taking your cash, that means you are the person that is bearing all the risk of losing a cash, and they bear no risk at all.
Yeah.
Right. So
Well, I love that model. You're going to save so many people so much heartache and money. I love that the model is, it's not about, taking a client to spend as much time as you can over the period of project. It's about getting them over the line fast and profiting fast and earning fast and adding value fast, so that everyone wins at the end, and it will build that rapport and that relationship. And as we go back to that word of mouth as well, because it's like, Tappollo Media helped me build this fast, and we were up and running, and we were serving, and we were making it work. We iterated quick, and it is what it is today because of you guys. And then now, if there's anything else we want to start or recommend, for sure, that there's no way that we go.
I absolutely love that, right? Like every project we take on, we literally treat it as if it is our own project, because we have equity in it, right? So it almost feels like we are an incubator in a way.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we're growing our own child as well, right? Because we have a stake in it. So that level of energy that you put into it is just not the same, because we we give the founders so many ideas, so many different ways to try different things that would have saved them social. Like even sometimes just taking one idea that we know or one strategy that we know that maybe like a multi-million dollar company is using.
Yeah.
And that one idea can change the whole approach and how they do certain things.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not always looking at short-term profit, but looking at the long-term, right? Basically doing the right thing so that everything comes out, okay in the long term. If nothing else, even if this model is not working, at least you feel good doing it. But we know this model works. You just have to carefully execute it, and things are going to work out good for the clients and for us as well.
Yeah. That reminds me of what you said about, because obviously you have a lot of experience and you worked with many size companies, from like some of the largest companies out there to like some small startups as well. And it reminds me of something that one of my favorite marketing teachers taught me. It was from a gentleman called Jay Abraham. And he himself had been involved in so many different industries. And when you're in one, like for example, if you're in hospitality or you're in you think one way.
Yes.
And you're very concrete in that specific to do things, how to do things. And then you perceive that's how the industry works. Whereas when you come along, you're like, well, I know that's how you're thinking, but there's this one like simple strategy in another industry that they always consider could not just multiply, but compound your results in your one, if you would be open to giving it a go. And
I totally agree with you, because it's interesting you mentioned that, because a couple of years ago, we were trying to see what else we can do to innovate, in our space. And a lot of people were giving us advice on positioning. They always said the niche is the rich or something like that, right? Focus on the niche. Position yourself as being the expert in one particular field so you can charge more money for it.
Yeah.
But what we found is that there's actually a flaw in that thinking, because by actually not niching ourselves down to an industry, we're able to know so many different industries and we're able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Right. So we're able to do things that a lot of people, because we can connect different ideas. And that's where creative, because especially with startup projects, you need that in order to create that, just brainstorm ideas and combine all different ideas from different space. That brings more value, that brings more innovation into things. But it's hard to do innovation through just from a technical standpoint. You have to do it from a product standpoint. But by working with so many different startups, with the vesting model, we're able to combine different things. So sometimes even connect different startups together to work together to bring sort of more value with the idea.
Another question regarding some of the exciting projects, and I understand if you can't reveal or you can't share what it is, but is there any exciting startups that you see that are upcoming that you might be working on, or that you know of, that is that fuels you at the moment, you feel like we should look out for, or any in that space?
Yeah, we're working with a COVID-19 project that is really exciting. It's that. So there have been a lot of contact tracing type initiatives going on out there, but those are more on in the civilian level. But because there are a lot of people participating in those projects, it becomes fragmented. I mean, the whole idea of contact tracing with the COVID-19 is that you have to have a centralized approach, because you can't. The mass adoption is really important for that to be effective. Contact tracing in this case means you want to know who you come into contact with. But you and I are both using different apps. It's not, for the contact tracing, it's not going to work out. So this particular project we're getting into is actually going to be dealing with creating a way for people to get to go back to work safely. So come up with different ways, different mechanisms to make sure that we have the app to basically keep track and create sort of mechanisms within the app itself to make sure that whatever company wants to use our tool is able to make sure that the employees are safe when they come back to work. So that's one particular project that we thought is pretty innovative in terms of what it's going to do to make that happen. And the other project I mentioned to you with a startup is in doing IoT in the elderly care space. That to me is also very meaningful and very impactful as well. Basically, especially right now, let's just say you have your older parents living by themselves, And because of the sort of the fear of spreading disease like COVID-19 or other diseases, you can't really necessarily go to their place. How do you make sure that they're safe when they're by themselves? So this IoT is a sort of it's kind of like Alexa type equipment. There's at home that can detect CO2 level and fall detection and things like that. So if your parents or older person that you're taking care of, they get into some sort of situation, at least the caretaker who's that has the app can be notified and then basically go to them right away. So yeah, things like that are really, like, to me, it's just very exciting to be work on stuff that is just creating a ton of value for the masses.
Agreed, for sure. I'll start off talking about the COVID-19 opt-in with the contact tracing, and I find that for example in Korea or in Singapore and in parts of Asia, they're able to somehow implement it a lot more effectively, and able to get everyone on board very quickly. But and I'm not sure what it's like in the US, but in Australia, the government's released a contact tracing app as well. But it seems that the community here aren't as adoptive, and they don't, I don't know what they fear, but maybe it's a privacy thing or whatnot, but they don't want to, not everybody wants to download. And
yes,
and it kind of defeats the purpose if not everyone kind of gets on board, because then you can't trace. So it'd be interesting to see, and it's interesting to hear that over there you've got multiple platforms trying to trace, not just the one. Whereas I think in Asia, most of Asia, I think it's just the one, and in Australia it's just the one as well. But it's fascinating to hear over there you've got more than one.
Yes, exactly. And then I also mentioned to you a couple other ideas that we love. One app is already launched. Is the first dating app that we created for the autism community, for the founder.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is like great, right? The founder came to us.
Incredible.
His cousin had autism and was in the autistic spectrum, and right away was like, we're gonna help you. We're gonna fund half of that. You're gonna fund half of that, get that off the ground, and it was so meaningful. And then we loved the idea, and after the app was done, we got it done in the first sort of initial. We got it done in 9 weeks.
Wow.
For both platforms and the back end. And we estimated that it would have taken a regular company probably at least 2-3 times the amount of time, because we have that framework that allows us to work very quickly.
Absolutely.
And the founder was able to go out, pitch it in the set up a pitch contest, and won first prize for that. So that was a really meaningful project. We love that project.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard, and I was like, wow, why hasn't anyone thought of that?
Exactly, right? I mean, it's like, you can sit and think about all different ideas. At the end of the day, you have to unleash that creativity and make sure the barrier to entry to, get the app out is low enough for people to, be able to test out the ideas. And now the founder is trying to get funding and go full force, quit his job, and basically build his team around that, which is great. And then there's actually another project. I don't know how to go into details on this one, but the interesting thing with this is that this founder came to us, and she came up with this way to basically allow you to come up with like a very accurate compatibility score between two people based on just their birthday, right? It's not just it's not just like straight astrology type of thing. She came up with a whole system, and now we're trying to help her test that by because her system is like, I've never seen a system like that before, but we're trying to test it by basically allowing, because she has tested it with hundreds of people, and she said it's always been accurate, right? Whether the two people are like very, very compatible. And if you anyone that has experience using any of the sort of match, like dating or whatever apps, you can, realize that the cost of, meeting with the wrong person or dating the wrong person is high, right? It's just like very frustrating and very painful. And so if we're gonna use the app, collect data, analyze it, and see if it's really as accurate as she claims it is. If that's true, and if, let's just say, if it goes beyond 50% or whatever, I think this can create a lot of value for people, not sort of going into, or at least they know what they're gonna get, what they're getting into, right? If the person is not compatible, maybe So
it's fascinating. Sorry to cut you. I was thinking it's fascinating that you brought that up, because I was having this conversation recently. about, you know, like we all know people who have been on these apps and that, you know, they're looking for the partner. And often you kind of get these, it's like, oh, you know, she's from there too, or he's also from that area. It's like, what are the chances and all of that. And they hit it off with conversations and phone calls. And then, but the thing is when they meet, it's a different story. And then it's like the chemistry and stuff. And then we're thinking, it's like, oh man, if anyone could crack the chemistry code, like, that's $1 billion idea right there. And then here you are coming up with this. It's like, it might work out. You don't know, right?
Yeah. So we actually, so I didn't just, you know, believe it. I tested it with her, you know, just giving her different birthdays. The people that I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it. So that's why we want to test it out. We want to test it out and see, because it could become something. But obviously, I want to also approach it from a very scientific standpoint. Meaning, once we collect enough data, we're gonna use data science and machine learning to try to to essentially try to prove out that this is actually accurate.
Wow.
But the last idea, I don't know if I talked to you before, is actually something that we came up with internally to try to solve the COVID-19 issue with this restaurants. So what happened was that as we all know, that restaurants got hit really bad.
Yeah.
And we noticed that it was, you know, painful to actually see a lot of people got hurt. And obviously a lot of people, not just restaurants, got hurt, but we're like, okay, let's just focus on helping one segment at a time. So what we thought about was that we can create something that within a building, create something that would basically encourage people to get into a group buy, like a bulk order of food from restaurants. And then once it reaches a certain minimum order, then we would submit the order to the restaurant. And instead of like regular sort of food ordering apps where they show every single restaurant and every single food items, we're just focusing on the top rated ones and then showing 1 or 2 items that are really good, you know, that are really popular for that restaurant. So with this sort of model, if someone else is, you know, they live in the same residential or condo buildings, whatever, and then if they meet that minimum order, they can get a discounted price that we negotiate with the restaurant. We don't charge them any commission, anything like that, at least for right now. And because of that, we're able to pass a lot of savings for the food, you know, the cost of the food down to the consumers. So we're hoping that with this model, this app, we're able to encourage people to order more food because it's very expensive when you order food and you have to pay a delivery fee and all that. But getting into a bulk thing, you can share the, you know, costs and the delivery costs and all that. So hoping that with this model, we can help the restaurants, the drivers, the tenants, you know, the buildings, and so pretty much everyone in this whole little ecosystem here.
Well, a fascinating model, because I'm one of my businesses also part of the hospitality industry, and you know, obviously everyone's trying to jump on these delivery platforms and stuff, but it makes sense on the owner hospitality side as well, because if we were able to get orders in bulk, it's actually a lot more easier for us to prepare, and we would make more from it. Obviously, we would cut time on it. It would be more efficient for us to package and prepare. And the savings can be passed, like then with those savings, we can cut it so we can give that discount and pass those discounts over to the consumer as well. So it makes a lot of sense what you're doing.
Exactly. That's what we're hoping to do. We're testing that out right now. We just got finished, you know, developing the app, and also just we talked to a few really passionate folks in the logistics space. We're partnering up to try to test out this idea. And there's a ton of innovation that can go into a food ordering thing that is outside of, you know, the regular sort of food ordering you know, app. Like we can, for example, we can have people pay, like you know, whatever you order, you can sort of, let's just say you order something that costs you, you know, $19, and we can say we want to round it up and then maybe donate that $1 to pay for, you know, food for the first responders, for example. We can bring in, like, you know, like just even in a pay forward type of feature into something that allows you know, donation and that sort of stuff to happen within the and we thought of so many different ideas that can be done with the platform. For example, showing the face behind the people who prepare the food or deliver the food to you. You know, bring out the faces, bring out the stories behind them. That would create that sort of emotion and sort of a connection, right? You're not just buying food. You're actually, you know, doing a lot of things to help people who are creating, you know, like making those food as well.
Absolutely. So, like it becomes a lot more experiential rather than transactional.
It becomes something like, so you can develop this sense of interdependence, right, between like everyone else. And we don't have that before that. It was all just consumerism. It's more like just, I consume this, you produce this, that's it. There's just no connection between who's making my food, you know, and who's delivering my food and all of that.
Wow. Boon, I've learned so much from you, and this whole conversation is blowing my mind, and I'm just buzzing with ideas, and I love this energy that you have. Um, and while we begin to wrap up, is there any last words, inspiration, any last words or any thoughts that you'd like to share to inspire or encourage action to
Yeah.
businesses or industries that have been disrupted at the moment?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that we notice that makes most people successful is really take action, right? A lot of people, they spend way too much time thinking about it and not enough time taking action. I would say be action biased, take actions.
Hmm.
And there's so many different ideas and innovations that can be done on every single thing, be business model, the way you execute it, and get the right team. And if the team, you're not sure if it's the right, get another team to audit the work that that team has done. That increases the, the sort of the quality and, the assurance and all that stuff. So make sure to basically focus on the fundamentals. Don't go by just price alone when, hiring someone to execute anything, but really look at the fundamentals. Is the team honest? Is the team able to give you more ideas and things like that? And then just go and do it and just keep on trying, keep on trying new things. I think the action part is if if the startup is able to really infuse that action type of culture into what they do,
Hmm.
there's a high chance they can be successful as long as they're careful with the sort of the cash burn rate. And that's what I have.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for the wise words. We can all learn so much from your wisdom and your experience. And lastly, how can people find more about you or your business? Where should they go?
Yeah, so they can go to tappollo.com, tappollo.com. The website, it's we didn't list a lot of the projects that we've worked on in the past couple of years. So, but if they reach out to me at Boon at tappollo.com, I can send them a company deck, and they can look at some of the projects we worked on, and then we can decide if we can help them on that. Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Boon, for this conversation. It was invigorating. It sparked so many ideas within me, and I hope it was for the listeners and viewers as well. If we can help in any way, that would be amazing with them. Again, I appreciate your time. It's such an honor to have you on, and I hope we can connect again soon sometime. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I hope that we'll get a chance to create some apps for you down the line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you.
Right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.